Hello! Can you say hi? Welcome back to Vlogmas. I think it's Vlogmas day 5. And today, in honor of it being day 5, I'm going to share 5 very basic but worth repeating tips to have a happy holiday on a budget. So throughout the video, I'm definitely going to refer to this as Christmas because that's what we celebrate at my house. But I think these tips are totally applicable to whatever holidays you guys might celebrate. Let's jump into it. So like I said, 5 very basic tips, but worth repeating. I also think worth knowing that other people are following these tips. Sometimes at the holidays, it can turn into a sort of subconscious or unconscious competition between family to family, and it shouldn't need to feel like that. So along those lines, the first tip is make a budget and stick to it. Seems super basic, but it is really easy, particularly when you have kids, to throw the budget out the window. Now, if you have the money to have a huge budget, go for it. You do you. We're on a little bit of a tighter budget this year, so we made really sure to keep within that budget. And what we did is we just set an amount per person. Lauda and I are going to probably just be doing stocking stuffers for each other, but that setting of a budget is definitely an important step in making sure you stay on financial track for what is right for you and your family. Seems simple, totally worth repeating. It is so easy when you're out and about to see little things that catch your eye and to think, oh, you know, my kiddo would like this, my partner would like this, whatever the case may be. But when you have that budget and you know you need to stick with it, it just helps you keep on track. Tip number 2 is to price compare. This is so important if your budget is tight. If you have a really large budget, it might not matter as much and it might not be worth your time. Although if you're like me and you like a good deal, it always is worth your time. So by price comparing, I mean thinking about what different items cost store to store, but also thinking about how much you actually need. So a great example of this is you can get a 4-ounce bag of those trolley sour bright worm candies at Dollar Tree for $1. You can get a 28.8-ounce bag at Walmart for $5.48. So if you break that down, at Dollar Tree, it's about 25 cents per ounce, and at Walmart, it's about 19 cents per ounce. Now, if you have only 1 or 2 kiddos who are gonna eat those, it might be worth going to Dollar Tree and getting the 2 bags for $2 and technically paying slightly more per ounce. But if you have a family of, let's say, 4 or 5 kiddos who really like those, it might make more sense to go to Walmart, buy the bigger bag, and break them up into their individual stockings or presents or however you handle it at your house. Because at that point, the amount is something you're actually gonna use. So for us, if we were gonna buy those, we would go with the Dollar Tree bag because this kid does not need 29 ounces of sugar. Do you? Do you? And on that note, Lauda and I don't need it either. Tip number 3 is to consider something like going secondhand or thrift shopping for certain items that you know are common in thrift stores but that are very costly. An example would be if Lauda and I are going to get new clothes, we really like, particularly if they're workout clothes, we like Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, those nicer brands that last longer but are obviously pricier. That said, if we go to a secondhand store, a lot of times we can get 3, 4, and even 5 of those items for what one brand new item would cost. And I know giving secondhand is controversial at holidays, but if you don't want to do it for your partner or your older kids, it totally works for younger kids who don't know the difference. And as a bonus, you're reducing waste by reusing something that somebody else is done with. And honestly, a lot of times at thrift stores, when we've gone to get clothes for Ani or ourselves, they're brand new with tags. So if you're okay with that, I totally recommend it. We've also gotten some great toys for Ani at thrift stores for a fraction of the cost. Tip number 3 is to think outside the box. The holidays are a time where it can be really tempting to go all out and spend a lot of money to do fun activities as a family. And there's nothing wrong with that. Again, if it's in your budget, go for it. Do those fun things. If it's not in your budget, don't feel guilty about not being able to do that. Find a way to do something similarly fun in your price range. An example is those drive-through light exhibits where you pay however much per person or per car to drive through and see these gorgeously lit up displays that are super fun. I am not saying they're not. There's nothing wrong with those. But if it's not in your budget, go old school. When we were kids, we loved piling in the van and driving neighborhood to neighborhood and just seeing what we could see. Were the light displays always on the same caliber as the drive-through options you pay for? Not at all. But on the flip side of that, we were still together, doing something fun, and it turned into almost like a scavenger hunt of who could see the next cool house coming up. If you want to make it a little bit more fun, maybe take some snacks in the car, play some holiday music, or just talk as a family. You're still getting that family time together and the fun holiday experience. Don't feel guilty for not being able to afford things you can't afford. A similar swap is if you really like seeing holiday movies and maybe you normally go see one in theaters, but you either don't want to do that this year or can't afford it this year, there are a ton of movies on YouTube for free with ads. Or if you already have something like Hulu, Netflix, Disney Plus, make an event out of it. Get in comfy PJs, get a ton of blankets, pile up in your living room, and watch those movies, not necessarily for free because you're paying for those services anyway, but at a much discounted price. And sometimes you can even get better snacks when you're not paying to go to the movies. Another thinking outside of the box idea is, if you can't afford the big turkey or the big ham, there's no shame in that. Swap it out for something cheaper that your family loves. Maybe it's something time intensive that you don't like making. Homemade monkey bread was something we loved as kids, but it takes some time if you're not using pre-made dough. So think creatively. If you can't afford the big traditional meal, pick a meal your family loves but doesn't get very often. And my final tip number 5, is to make your own traditions. Don't feel pressured to stick with something that isn't working for you. Oh my. But like I was saying, if those big expensive holiday meals aren't in your budget, or maybe your family doesn't even like them, a lot of people make a turkey and don't really like turkey. Do something your family does love. One of my friends' families does homemade pizza every Christmas because they like making pizza as a family. When they make their own dough, it's time intensive, so they don't do it often, but they do it every Christmas Eve, every year. And then they actually have the leftover pizza for Christmas morning breakfast. So something like that is perfect. Your traditions are supposed to be fun and enjoyed by your family, so don't feel pressured to conform. Do what works. Setting your own traditions can also mean maybe playing some board games. Personally, we love board games. I've done a whole video on family board games, so I'll link that below in case you're interested. But something else to consider can be as a gift as simple as a deck of cards. I have had this tragic royalty deck of cards since I went to Australia for the first time, which I think was 2006. Now, to be fair, they are banged up and loved. I've played with these bad boys at the beach. I've played with them in hostels, hotels, airplanes, airports, all kinds of stuff. They're beat up, but I think I paid $5 for them when they were new, and that's 14, almost 15 years of use out of these. A deck of cards can be a great, simple gift. You can find a bunch of different card games online that can be played with a number of people. It varies from 2 all the way up to 10. And with a bunch of different rules that would fit different age sets. Similarly, again, you could get Uno or Phase 10. These are both about $5 to $10. I've played Uno with kids as young as 3, as long as they know how to match. They can match the colors, they can match the numbers, or they can play on somebody else's team. Phase 10, great for a little bit of an older age set, but definitely fun and replayable. There are a million of these card games, and they're great stocking stuffers. And once you've given them once, you can pull them out then periodically throughout the year for family game nights. Or maybe you're only playing them on Christmas Eve or Christmas as a family. But those are the types of traditions I'm talking about. They're simple, they're fun, they encourage family, together, cohesion, happiness, and they don't break the bank. With all of that said, those are my 5 tips for a happy Christmas, happy holidays, whatever you want. Set a budget, price compare, consider secondhand, think outside the box, and make your own family traditions. Those are the tips that work for Lauda and I. They've worked for my family growing up and me, so hopefully at least one of them speaks to you and your family, or if nothing else, hopefully knowing somebody else is sticking to a really tight budget this Christmas makes you feel better about trying to stick to your budget. Don't feel pressured. It's so easy, especially with social media, to get wrapped up in what everyone else is doing for their kids, their partners, their parents, etc., and feel guilty about not doing that for your own. I personally have to remind myself sometimes that is what their family's doing, and that's great. I'm so happy for them, and I legitimately mean that, but it's not what's right for me and my family right now. That doesn't make theirs worse. It doesn't make theirs better. It doesn't make mine worse or better. It's just what's right for my family. So, with that said, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye!